Hello and very warm welcome at Amish Cycle 5858. I am Amish Cycle. Foreign news have been reported by American, European, Asian, African, Australian news channels and the news agencies. So please let's go to the headlines.
On this Tuesday night, the U.S. Defense Secretaries claim the next phase of the Iran war could be decisive.
There's almost nothing they can militarily do about it.
And the U.S. President's message to allies about where to get their oil. The impact of soaring gas prices on Canadians, and not just at the pumps.
It affects everything from the top down.
And the turbulence for airlines as jet fuel supplies dwindle. Canada's much criticized vaccine injury support program ends. What's replacing it and why? Plus, he worked tirelessly to make the world a better place.
One is put on this planet to improve the human condition.
Remembering Canadian politician, activist, and humanitarian Stephen Lewis. Spy from the U.S.
We're leaving very soon, and if friends are starting to go to the ship and they'll be able to themselves.
He told the Wall Street Journal today he's willing to, or even if critical sea remains closed. The longer Iran maintains its hold on the Straits, the more the world economy will feel it. We will get to the impact on gas prices in a moment.
First, 2 weeks. Defense
to ban under-15s from using social media apps. Plus, we asked the head of NASA if the first crewed mission to the moon for more than half a century will really blast off today. Good morning. Donald Trump says the US will be finished in Iran in 2 or 3 weeks, regardless of whether or not he's able to secure a deal with Tehran. The US president claims that regime change has been achieved and that Iran has no military capabilities left. He's also insisted that the
Africa News. The news.
The charity Doctors Without Borders said on Tuesday that sexual violence has become a weapon for the Rapid Support Forces and its allies in Sudan. But it is a weapon that reaches far beyond the battlefield.
So therefore it's not in the front line. We're really far away from it. And still, all the sexual assault sexual 390 women girls which then they sexual down. What is
okay. And Kate reveal that Tipo Alice and they got money on board these for us crew. Only by police has look at the
Wednesday morning. I'm Julie Yu. It's 9 a.m. here in Singapore. The headline this hour. On in 2 weeks. Options on the tape to rubber guard. Just the middle.
Messages on speed. Peace plan.
I'm Elizabeth here with this in Japan and South Korea leading gains. It follows U.S. stocks slugging their biggest one-day increase in 10 months, even as questions linger about the damage of the conflict in the Middle East's energy facilities and the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. While Asian governments are ramping up mitigation measures as surging oil prices bite, Indonesia begins fuel rationing and orders civil servants to work remotely, while South Korea proposes an extra $17 billion budget. And later, we're counting down to NASA's historic mission to send humans around the moon for the first time in more than half a century. Artemis 2's April 1st launch on track with good weather largely on the horizon. But first. President Donald Trump says the U.S. will be leaving the war in Iran within the next 2 to 3 weeks. He made the comment ahead of a nationwide address he's expected to make on the Iran war late Wednesday U.S. time or at 9 a.m. tomorrow Singapore, Hong Kong time.
Mr. Trump says Tehran doesn't have to make a deal for the conflict to end and that the war could conclude without the Strait of Hormuz reopening.
We'll be leaving very soon, and if France or some other country wants to get oil or gas, they'll go up through the strait and Hormuz Strait. They'll go right up there and they'll be able to fend for themselves. I think it'll be very safe, actually, but we have nothing to do with that. What happens to the strait, we're not going to have anything to do with, because these countries, China will go up and they'll fuel up their beautiful ships and they'll leave and they'll take care of themselves. There's no reason for us to do it.
Mr. Trump earlier lashed out at NATO allies for not helping the war effort. Singling out the UK, he challenged member countries to either buy US oil or go to the Strait of Hormuz and take it themselves. He warned they should not count on the US for future support. The rift lays bare the deep divisions within NATO.
Well, his latest statements on the war come as Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said the next 3 days will be decisive, warning that the conflict could intensify if Tehran doesn't make a deal. He hailed progress on the battlefield, adding Iran knows it can do nothing about it militarily.
The latest intel is clear out of CENTCOM. Our strikes are damaging the morale of the Iranian military, leading to widespread desertions, key personnel shortages, and causing frustrations amongst senior leaders.
Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi told Al Jazeera that there's been direct contact with U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff that says it doesn't amount to negotiations. Both warring parties have been exchanging messages via Pakistan ahead of a Monday deadline for Tehran to end the war or face strikes on its energy infrastructure.
Iran's president says Tehran is willing to end the war, but in the phone call with the president of the European Council, Massoud Pezeshkian says his country wants security guarantees to ensure the conflict is never repeated.
Well, Kate Fisher, tracking developments for CNN, she tells us the U.S. leader is looking for an off-ramp, even if it means leaving others to reopen the Strait of Hormuz.
I think that will have gone down very badly with allies across the world. He has been repeatedly calling on them for their help in trying to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, and they have all been rejecting that, given they already feel burned by the fact that the US and Israel took this military action without consulting any of them first, and now they don't feel that they want to put their troops at risk, trying to kind of clear up the problems that this invasion, this war has started. So, there is probably more anger in those allies after hearing that. And it's again another indication that Donald Trump kind of wants to finish this up now. He wants to try to get gas prices down again in the United States. He wants to, he's happy to leave even if he leaves this huge mess of the Strait of Hormuz, because he believes because the US produces its own oil that this country can cope without that. But of course, just the very fact of closing the strait means that gas prices across the globe are going to be higher, whether you make your own oil or not. It's going to affect the whole world's economy, and that is going to affect American drivers and American voters. So yeah, this I think is just another indication of a lack of respect. Certainly his allies will feel it as a lack of respect, and again perhaps a sign of his growing frustration and need to leave this conflict to try to have a better, because domestically it is doing so badly for him in the opinion polls.
The US
to keep asking.
The Prime Minister to deliver a rare national prime-time address tonight on Australia's response to the war in the Middle East. Donald Trump gives a new timeline for ending the military campaign against Iran after criticising allies for failing to support the war effort.
They'll be able to fend for themselves. I think it'll be very safe, actually, but we have nothing to do with them.
Support for small business announced amid the global fuel and shipping crisis. Doctors warn of a rise in preventable illness as childhood vaccinations fall to a 5-year low. And the Socceroos defeat Curacao and will face Turkey in their first World Cup group game in June. Hello and welcome to ABC News. I'm Liz Giles. Let's start with some significant news out of Canberra. The Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, will deliver an address to the nation tonight as the local impact stemming from the Iran war continues to intensify. National Affairs correspondent Jane Norman is in Parliament House with the details. Hi there, Jane. What do we know?
Hello, Ros. What we know is that there is no announcement being made tonight. There is no mandate or any restrictions being announced. What this is all about is the Prime Minister seeking to speak directly to Australians about what the government is doing and has been doing in response to the Middle East crisis, how it's been seeking to shield Australians from the very severe impacts of this crisis, and also encouraging Australians to do what they can too. So in the background that we've been provided from the Prime Minister's office, there's a line about asking Australians to play their part, saving fuel if they can for the areas and industries that need it. As we speak, we're 5 weeks into this war. Petrol prices and diesel prices have soared to record highs. Hundreds of surveys across Australia are running dry from one or two types of fuel. Largely, that's a distribution problem, but these are the kind of challenges that Australians are facing, all because the Strait of Hormuz, where 20% of the world's oil trade passes through, is effectively under blockade in Iran. Now, the government this week, in fact, just last night, has passed legislation to halve the fuel excise, so that'll wipe about 26 cents a litre off the price of petrol and diesel at Bowser. It's temporarily scratched the road user charge. It's also introduced some emergency powers to underwrite future shipments of fuel and fertiliser, two very key commodities that are being in short supply really globally because of the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. So as it stands now, the government has told Australians that supplies are secure, but the reality is the longer this war drags on, the worse the crisis could become for Australians.
Jen, how significant is an address like this?
Well, it's very rare and very significant, and it really tells Australians that this is a crisis now. So the last Prime Ministers to address the nation like this was then Prime Minister Scott Morrison during the COVID pandemic. Before that, it was then Prime Minister Kevin Rudd during the global financial crisis. So here we are again in 2026, Australia confronting yet another global crisis, and the Prime Minister really...
This is DW News, and these are our top stories. President Donald Trump has lashed out at NATO allies for refusing to provide the US with military assistance for the Iran war. He called member states cowards and described the alliance as a paper tiger. France, Spain and Italy are not allowing American forces to use their air bases. US stocks have had their best day since last May, as hopes rise that the Iran war could soon be over. The benchmark Dow Jones Index gained 2.5%. Investors were encouraged by President Trump, saying the war would not last much longer and the Strait of Hormuz would be reopened. Ukraine has been marking the 4th anniversary of the massacre in the town of Bucha. Senior European officials took part in a memorial ceremony. Ukrainian officials and rights groups say Russian forces killed more than 400 people in Bucha shortly after the start of the war. Moscow has denied its troops committed atrocities. Spain under influence on France 24.
Welcome to Night Watch. I'm Charlotte Lamb, and these are your top stories. A bold declaration from US President Donald Trump saying the US could end its war in Iran within 2 to 3 weeks, offering his most direct timeline yet in an effort to dissolve a conflict that has spread across the Middle East and triggered a global energy crisis. Behind closed doors, Gulf nations are reportedly pressing Trump to push on with the war, privately insisting that the Tehran government has not yet been weakened enough to stop the offensive. And the Eurovision Song Contest launches its first ever Asian edition. The spin-off will feature 10 nations, including South Korea, Thailand and Philippines, and comes as the original event is marred by protests and boycotts. Thanks for watching. US President Donald Trump says...
David Muir,
ABC's World News Tonight, America's most watched newscast. Now streaming same day with all the breaking news of the day on Disney Plus. Most watched, most trusted. Now on Disney Plus every night.
Tonight, breaking news just as we come on. President Trump talking to our John Carl. What the president now says tonight about gas prices here in the U.S. The average for a gallon of gas now topping $4 in this country, far higher in some places. Also, the president's message to allies tonight on the Strait of Hormuz. Build up some courage, he says. Go to the strait yourselves and take the oil. Telling John Carl they weren't here for me. John standing by tonight. Also breaking tonight, dramatic new images from the war in Iran. An official telling ABC News about the U.S. strike inside Iran using 2,000-pound bunker buster bombs. American B-52 bombers deep over Iran. And tonight, the Pentagon now deploying a third U.S. aircraft carrier. And just in tonight, the new warning for Americans in the region. We'll go live to Matt Rivers. Back in the U.S. just a short time ago, Tiger Woods pleading not guilty to DUI. What the police report now reveals tonight. What police say they found in Tiger Woods' pocket. Tonight, after those U.S. Army Apache attack helicopters hovered over Kid Rock's home. The performers saluting them. Tonight, what's now happened to those Army pilots? Martha Raddatz standing by. Tonight, the major headline involving the president's $400 million White House ballroom. A judge temporarily blocking the construction. The judge writing, "You don't own the White House." The deadly school shooting, a high school student shooting a teacher. She was rushed to the hospital. And what authorities have now revealed tonight about the 15-year-old shooter. Tonight, the countdown is on. 24 hours until the scheduled launch of Artemis II, NASA's first human mission to the moon in more than 50 years. We'll go live. Tonight, the wild escape. A woman in handcuffs climbing out the back window of a police cruiser. What's now happened to her tonight? The frightening moments in the water. A windsurfer colliding with a whale thrown from his board. And America Strong tonight, the inspiring 8-year-old throwing out the first pitch. Won't forget this.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight with David Muir.
Good evening. We begin tonight here with breaking news. President Trump speaking with ABC News about the war in Iran. Gas prices here in the U.S. now topping $4 a gallon, far higher in some parts of the country. The president tonight saying about America's allies when it comes to Hormuz, build up some courage, go to the strait yourselves and just take it. Telling our Jonathan Carl they can police it themselves. They weren't there for me. Just moments ago, the president now saying securing the Strait of Hormuz is, quote, not for us, and suggests this war will go another 2 to 3 weeks. Tonight, what the president now says about gas prices, the cost of this war, John Carl and his conversation with the president.
Tonight, with Iran's blockade of the Strait of Hormuz causing oil prices to soar around the world, President Trump is urging America's allies to, quote, build up some delayed courage, go to the strait, and just take it. In a phone call, the president told me of our allies, they can police it themselves. Why should I do it for them?
Maximum pressure on Iran. U.S. Central Command releasing new video of brand new strikes on targets inside that terror nation. U.S.-Israel joint operation zeroing in on the mission to degrade Iran's military capabilities and strike at the heart of that regime's nuclear weapons ambitions. Not losing sight. That is the mission. I'm Harris Faulkner. You are in the Faulkner Focus. The Pentagon with a new update this morning on Operation Epic Fury.
President Trump is doing what no other president had the guts to do. Previous presidents were all talk. He's all action. On the battlefield, because of the latitude the president has given us, American firepower is only increasing. Iran's decreasing. We have more and more options, and they have less. Just 1 month in, only 1 month, we set the terms. But if Iran is wise, they will cut a deal. President Trump doesn't bluff, and he does not back down.
President Trump posted video. We went after Iran's main nuclear sites inside their third largest city. Our military took out an ammunition depot. Look at your screen. This is Isfahan, and it sent a massive fireball into the sky. U.S. forces reportedly used 2,000-pound bunker busters there. And here is the CENTCOM commander, Admiral Brad Cooper.
We don't see their Navy sailing, we don't see their aircraft flying, and their air defense and missile defense systems have largely been destroyed.
Former Army Special Operations Intelligence Analyst Brett Velikovich joins me with new analysis in moments. I want to begin with senior White House correspondent Peter Doocy, kicking off our coverage from the North Lawn. Peter.
And Harris, here at the White House, the plan is changing a little bit, but the objective remains the same.
Well, the Straits of Hormuz will be open. When this operation is over, it will be open, and it'll be open one way or another.
One of those ways, just like countries that use the Strait of Hormuz, take it. President Trump just said, all of these countries, they can't get jet fuel because of the Strait of Hormuz, like the United Kingdom, which refused to get involved in the
Good to be with you. I'm Tony Nicopo. The breaking news right now. Gas prices hit $4 a gallon nationwide, the highest in nearly 4 years, all of it tied to the war with Iran. When will prices start to come down again? What the president told our Wei Zhang. Also, the state of the American dream tonight slipping out of reach for many. What the head of America's biggest bank told me today about his plan to bring it back. Plus, the newly released arrest report detailing for the first time what led to that DUI charge against Tiger Woods. According to police, the golfing legend sweating profusely, eyes bloodshot, and what they say they found in his pocket. The new details tonight. The major mix-up in the cockpit. The crew of a Delta regional jet radios the wrong airport in New York City on final approach. What happened?
This is Kennedy Tower. Please go to LaGuardia Tower. Oh, good. Sorry. That's crazy.
And humanity's first launch to the moon in more than a half century. What NASA is saying tonight about the likelihood of liftoff. And the good stuff, life after the hospital for a little boy named Wyatt.
Thank you for watching. I'm Shakil 5858. I hope you will come again. Have a good life. Bye-bye.